I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and I'm so thrilled today to be talking about the series Life Beth. We are joined today by Kevin Kane, who is an actor, executive producer, and director of episode 105 on the show, as well as Michael Cera. Kevin, I wanted to start with a question for you in terms of your character, because there's a real dichotomy between him being a character who really attempts to be thoughtful towards Beth in a lot of ways, and making grand gestures, but also there's a lot of kind of smaller details and thoughtlessness at the same time, grabbing a sandwich out of her mom's fridge that he doesn't even ask about how long it's been in the fridge, if it's something that she would have wanted, making big gestures that are kind of slightly misdirected. And so I was interested in how you viewed and approached the dichotomy of a character who's trying so earnestly to make the right choices and the right connections, but just kind of falling short in a lot of ways.
I think, Amy and I like the idea of like this whole, not living your kind of truthful self. And I think Matt is really like starring in his own show. So he's playing the character of Matt all the time, that when they're both at home, we like the idea of him just like not aware of anything, just checked out and exhausted from being Matt. So the whole thing for him is a facade at work every day. That's like a lot for him to keep up.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense in watching it. And Michael, for your performance and character, you're shaping a character who is very matter of fact and very direct in a lot of ways. He doesn't respond saying hello to someone in the grounds of the vineyard because he's already said hello to them. But he also has a lot of self-awareness and perceptiveness in others as well. He's very quick to realize that Beth's unhappy in her job without her even saying anything. And so I was really interested in how you found those aspects within your performance as you were shaping him as a character.
Well, it's pretty familiar to me. Like, I think, I know people like that, and I kind of assume everyone's met at least someone like that. And I love those people myself, even though, being around someone who doesn't filter, themselves. And I don't think that's a conscious choice. I think that's just their, what's native to them is like, I always find that those people, it feels good to be around them, even though if sometimes, it's very easy for them to unwittingly and without any awareness, create a very strange social situation or dynamic because they're not running their thoughts through like a social filtration system. They just come out completely unadulterated. So but then they always, I don't know, there's something refreshing about being around people who, are just going to give you the straight truth, and there's no ambiguity with them. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And Kevin, jumping back to your character as well, and some of the big gestures that he makes, like doing a flash mob for Beth, but in the aftermath of her mother's funeral, and that just being very misdirected. I was interested in how you found the experience.
That's an opinion. That's totally an opinion, but
that's exactly what Matt would say. But I was interested in how you really got the chance in this show to create a lot of comedy, but from a place that comes from real earnestness within your character as well, because, he really believes that he's doing the right thing in that moment. And it's such a great comedic beat of the show at the same time.
Yeah, I think that moment in particular in the writing, there was two things at play, like, something that misguided and that grand in that moment is so wrong. And so that was kind of exciting for us to do. And the other part of it, though, is that the most horrifying thing to me in my life would to actually have to sing in front of other people. So Amy wanted to make sure that was in the script in some way. So that was really more for her enjoyment personally than anything else.
But you nailed it.
Absolutely. And Michael, one of the things that I've really enjoyed throughout the full season is this arc of your character and the way that, being in, a dynamic with Beth really allows him to find different spaces within himself. He kind of at the beginning is very straight edge with her and then loosens up very quickly. So we get to see more of his kind of comedic side, as that connection builds and grows, and even his willingness to try and do things differently. Like when he gets a TV, he's never had one before, and he doesn't even have a cable box or an antenna, but it's the gesture that he's making for her. And so I was interested in how you really approached arcing out that journey for him and the sides of him that would kind of shift and evolve a little bit through this relationship dynamic.
Well, I think it's kind of hard for all of us to be in a successful relationship, because you really have to kind of see yourself. And we're also rooted in our own habits and our own comforts. And it's hard to change, and it's hard to make modifications to allow space for someone else to be comfortable with you. So, I mean, it's relatable. I just think it's harder for, some people than it is for others. I mean, I feel like John, he has sort of one gear that he lives in, and he's not used to changing himself to adapt to situations. He is just himself right the way through. And so it could be challenging, to be with someone like that, but it's sweet, I think, that he acknowledges the challenge of it and, goes along with her, and Beth makes a lot of compromises as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things that I loved about the dynamic between the two of you. And Kevin, kind of jumping back to your character, again, like there's some great humor, unfortunately, in the aftermath of the breakup with your character and the way that he responds to it. And it's, lashing out from everything from smashing everything in the office to just kind of feeling very stagnated in his life because he really can't understand how they ended up at a different place. His perception of where the relationship was very different to hers towards the end. And there's some comedy that comes from it, but again, it just comes from anger and frustration and pain. And so how did you want to play a lot of those scenes?
I think, there's like one thing that kind of interested us was the idea, like the codependency between the two of them. Like he creates a shadow that she gets to hide in, and she needs that. And he gets to have someone that he can actually open up to and be vulnerable to. So, she's taken a big leap to just stop doing these kind of survival mode things and be more of herself. And it's just a leap that he's not ready for yet,
Yeah. And with the comedic aspects for your performance, Michael, it's very much about kind of going back to that matter of fact delivery. That's actually where some of the comedy comes from. And so I was interested in if you were kind of really thinking about the comedic beats or really just the truthfulness of your character, because even a moment where he pulls a carrot out of his pocket and is chewing it loudly in the car, that's just something that he does. He's like, well, I grew these. Of course I would have these as a snack. And of course I would carry them in my pocket, so he's not trying to say it as a joke in any form.
No. I mean, the scripts, I got, the whole show sent to me, whole cloth, all 10 scripts, and kind of got to read the whole series and the whole evolution of this character and the relationship. And that's what I think Beth kind of really gravitates to in John is in some ways, is that he's completely unpretentious and without any pretensions or airs, and he is just a naturally funny person because he's very weird. So yeah, it's but so playing those moments, I mean, I think a lot of the humor of those moments, and if there's some kind of humor coming from John, it's the way that Beth is taking him in and reacting to him, and that she's just not used to someone like that, and that it completely disarms her.
Yeah, that makes sense. And lastly, I wanted to ask both of you about your collaboration in that 5th episode in the season, because there's a real synergy and kinetic connection that's coming together between John and Beth. And I love the way that through your performance, Michael, you really capture that along with Amy. It's like their body language starts to change. They get much more comfortable with each other around that point. And then Kevin, through your directing, you're using all these different aspects like color and light to really kind of tell that story and capture that connection as well. So I was just interested in hearing a little bit about the collaboration in bringing that relationship to the foreground in that episode.
I think, we always kind of feel like that episode kind of like in our minds always was the one that kind of just opened up and let the show breathe even more, even visually. So I think that was always kind of our idea, that it's sort of like that kind of the allegory of Beth, like giving way and giving her trust to someone, that the kind of constriction that's been around her life, even though we would take some of it out in each episode by 5, we thought we're starting to breathe this whole new life in.
We got pretty lucky with the location too.
It was unbelievable. Yeah.
Magical fair. We got this. And I think that location, just to give you a bit of behind the snes, came together like at the very last minute, didn't it? We were like not going to have a fair, and then suddenly this thing was there, and
there was going to be a build and a partial build, and we were trying to chase fairs all over New York State.
Yeah, right.
We just found this magic fair that was like a day before it was ready to open when they let us come in.
Yeah, that's really wonderful to hear. Well, congratulations on such a great season of the show and your performances, as well as your directing and producing, Kevin. Thank you so much to both of you.
Thanks, Mara.
Thanks.